Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. Eoin, Fitzgerald and I are back with another Money Talk segment this week, with big news for Ireland's startup ecosystem as Techstars comes to Ireland with the Launchpool Web3 Techstars Accelerator, along with some news of how I'll be involved in that. Then we get into how we think the JP Morgan Chase digital bank might fare in the UK, and also AngelList's announcement of AngelList Stack and their opportunity to monetize their massive user base through fintech. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Eoin, pal, how you doing tonight?
I am doing pretty good. As you know, and some of the listeners may or may not know, I had leg surgery there 2.5 weeks ago. Today's actually the first day I woke up with a fairly clear head. No painkillers, no antibiotics, nothing, which is nice. Not back to work until next week, but itching to get back to doing something. So I was glad to have this chat and have a chance to chat about some interesting fintech stuff. But
Good.
yeah, getting there.
Good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's nice to be off the painkillers. I went through that a year ago. Completely dumbs you down a bit.
Just a brain fog or whatever. I actually stopped taking them after a few days because I couldn't function. Simple enough leg surgery. They're like, 1 to 3 weeks recovery depending on what work you do. It's like, gosh, I'm working at home. Should be no problem. I hadn't even taken any time off. I planned to take any time off. Here I am nearly 3 weeks later.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Well, let's jump right into it tonight then. Big news. Big news here in Ireland. Techstars is coming to Ireland with the Launchpool Web3 Techstars Accelerator. And Charlie Taylor covered this in the Irish Times on Monday.
Yep.
And it was also announced on the Techstars website. So Techstars are launching this Dublin-based startup accelerator program. It'll begin in March 2022 and run for 13 weeks. And Techstars will be working with entrepreneurs focused on blockchain and tokenization protocols. One of the big things here is the program is in partnership with Alphabet Fund, who are a regulated crypto and digital asset investment fund, and Launchpool, who they're associated with, who are a regulatory compliant digital asset investment platform. Just for some context, Alphabet were one of the very first investors in Archax, the digital asset exchange, whose founder, Graham Rodford, was on episode 37 with us way back when, a few years ago. That was Fight for Your Right, that we named after the Beastie Boys track. Yeah, absolutely. So
tell us more about this. You know a little bit more than everybody else does, Pete. But,
I do, and I'll get into that in a minute. But people say, okay, tokenization, blockchain, Web3, what's Web3? Web3 is the decentralized web, okay? Web 1.0 was you can engage in some back and forth messaging on a bulletin board. Web 2.0, where we moved into the Netscape universe and we moved into, from there, being able to buy things, being able to engage in commerce, social media, all those types of things became Web 2.0, building fintech, building SaaS platforms, building whatever. Web 3.0 is the decentralized, where you're opening up things like these massively multiplayer online games and people being able to live in the metaverse. Now, that may seem like a fantasy today, but go read the book Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Have you ever seen that movie?
Haven't, but actually, the more I become familiar with or read more about the metaverse, it keeps coming up as a good example. So I must have a look at it.
Does. Yeah, I just read this over the last week, okay? Just coincidentally. And it was really helpful for me to paint the picture. Now, that being said, is this accelerator all about gaming? No, it's not. It's recognizing that tools like crypto, DeFi, NFTs, blockchain itself are all building blocks of the next frontier where money meets the metaverse, right? So lots of different examples of that I won't get into because I don't want this to go down the rabbit hole of this becoming a gaming discussion because that's not what it's all about. But where it's going is that applications are now open and will close on December 1st. And for the 10 startups that we'll be working with, they'll get investment, hands-on mentorship from world-class mentors, workshops, resources, and they get to do all of that in Ireland, namely Dublin. Techstars are big. Over 2,600 companies are Techstars grads, over $16 billion invested. There's an average of the first raise post-program for the participating companies is $1 million that they go to raise in their first round on average. And then the market cap of grad companies is over $63 billion. They've invested in names like Chainalysis, which are big in the blockchain space, SendGrid, Twilio, on the API side, Remitly for remittances. So It's a big
It's a
brand
big
name
deal.
coming to Ireland, pretty big deal, and really a fantastic news for the entire Irish ecosystem and not just Dublin.
No, huge. And look, Techstars are a really impressive beast, if you want to call them that. I've obviously seen companies go through them. I'm familiar with the guys on the fintech program. I've been to a couple of those demo days, worked with it. We've obviously talked to a number of companies on the show who've been through the process. Like, it's incredibly impressive. It's very well run. They really hammer the companies into shape. So the Techstars brand and what that brings is excellent, and that's great for the industry. I thought it was fascinating to see, having read a bit more into it and even listened to you talk through it there. This one in particular seems very kind of future focused, more so than most of the other typical Techstars programs. Because I've been playing a lot of Fortnite with my 10-year-old over the last 2 weeks while I've been sitting up with nothing else to do. So I get the whole concept, and we've talked about it before about this virtual currency or in-game currency and being able to kind of cash out of that, and the potential opportunities of that. I'm really interested to see the types of companies that are going to be working or going through the process. And even in terms of given that you'll narrow it down to 10, but the fact that there could be, could be anything up to 1,000 like there would be for a typical kind of cohort, that would apply. So it'll be really interesting to see the kind of companies that are applying and then the ones that get selected as to what they're doing then.
Yeah. And a lot, I think when we get down to the 10, it's when you look at those 10 companies, you're not going to see Ready Player One.
No.
Right? You're not going to see this future in the year 2044 where people are living the majority of their lives online. And in that book, Ready Player One, because people were living the majority of their lives online, society went to complete crap because nobody cared about that. And they could just solve their problems by forgetting about them in the metaverse.
Probably things like people fighting over gas at stations, like
exactly
stuff in the future never happened.
Oh, yeah. We see that happening at the island next door. Yes, we do. Yeah. But Shane McQuillan from Launchpool and Alphabet, he said when he spoke to Charlie Taylor about this for the Irish Times piece that Charlie did earlier in the week, he said, listen, it's just fintech, right? We've got blockchain, we've got digital assets, crypto, DeFi. This is all the digitalization of finance. And these are all the building blocks you need to make this online metaverse ecosystem possible so that people can engage. And we see snippets of that already happening with Axie Infinity, where kids in the Philippines are earning 3 times more than what they could earn in a job in the real world with this play to earn game. Okay. And it's just the beginning of all that. But everything that we see that's come over the last 10 years with cryptocurrency, with blockchain in the public realm, with blockchain in the private realm, with companies like R3, all of those are just building blocks. And it's what I'm really looking forward to seeing is how these companies composing their platforms to be able to do a bunch of different things and how that results in some compounding of revenue streams into a little bit of a thing that you and I would call a flywheel.
And do you think, are you likely to see more kind of infrastructure type companies, or will there be ones further along the monetization or the commerce side of it?
I think it's going to be a bit of both. I think if you are able to have a complete B2C product right now in this space with a big community that get behind everything you do, and you're already naturally going to be building on top of other stacks. You could build this entire online ecosystem on top of blockchains like Solana or Polygon's Matic, and it's a much different context of building on top of infrastructure that already exists. That being said, the infrastructure that you're going to need to be able to do these things, that's going to need to continue to get better over time.
I was just about to say, Pete, you seem to know an awful lot about this, way more than was covered in the Irish Times articles. Please do tell.
Well, I'm naturally very much interested in this space, but what's happened over the last month or so is that, actually what's happened over the last few months is I've got to know the folks at Launchpool. I've got to know the folks at Techstars through being a mentor in the ABN AMRO Techstars program that was run earlier this year. And all the stars have aligned into a perfect storm, if you want to call it. And from this perfect storm that's happened, I'm going to be running the Launchpool Web3 Techstars Accelerator starting in March of next year. It's kicking off now in terms of all the prep work, and there's a significant amount of prep work that goes into these programs. Like you mentioned, Techstars are running 50 plus programs around the world. So they've got this down to a science. So kicking that off now, meeting everyone, meeting the people that I'm going to be working with, thinking about who to start hiring, and we'll be well on our way. So it's been an interesting 6 weeks to get this all done, but we got it done about a week and a half ago, and just waiting for the press to start coming out so that we could announce it publicly. But we're recording this obviously Wednesday night. Folks will hear this on Friday, so it'll be, we'll see. It might be old news by that point. It's 24 hours in the news cycle, right?
That's it.
But yeah, incredibly excited to be doing this.
Oh,
and it
absolutely
feels like what I said on what I said to the folks at Techstars was that it feels like, looking at this opportunity now, the last 5 years of what I've been doing in the startup space has completely prepared me to do this. And it's just been a natural path that has led to this, just completely serendipitously.
And you couldn't put it better there, because actually I was telling Kira, my wife, earlier ahead of what we were going to be chatting about, and I was saying about this opportunity. I was like, you know what, this has been 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears for Pete to be in the position to actually be the person now to be running this. And I couldn't they couldn't have got a better guy, genuinely. So I'm really excited, because you know this stuff way more than I do. And generally, when we're talking about this stuff, I'm learning more from talking to you about it. And I just think like it's like you said, perfect storm of what you've done over the last 5 years, and the way this particular piece of fintech and financial services is moving, that you're the right guy for this. And it'll be fascinating to watch kind of from the sidelines and get the inside track as much as I can as to how it's all going, and see what it's like, and see what the companies are doing. Really, really exciting. So delighted for you.
Thank you. And I need to sign up about 100 mentors. Any interest in doing that yourself?
Absolutely.
Good man. All right. I'll put you on the list.
Put me on the list, and I won't ask my employer.
and Martin Cass, shout out to Martin.
Yeah.
He's done at the Techstars mentoring, the Mentor Madness, quite a few times now. You and him had a lovely, call it a fight, a number of years ago. So we'll see if we can get you guys to relive that for the first Launchpool Web3 Techstars Accelerator Dublin cohort coming up in March of next year.
Excellent.
Wonderful. So thank you. Like I said, very excited to kick this off. Speaking about new things launching, one of the big pieces of news coming out of the UK this week was JP Morgan Chase launching their new digital bank in the UK. And that is something that we've known about for 9 months or so that has been coming, because that was first announced back in January. But they've now done the big reveal of all of the features that are coming with this and what's happening with it. So a few of them: 1% cash back on all eligible debit card spend for 12 months at retailers at home and abroad. They've got their money management features, some spare change roundup savings at 5% interest for 12 months. Obviously, these introductory offers to get people on board, right? Question needs to be asked: how quickly will they follow with the bigger things such as mortgages, investing? They bought Nutmeg for about £700 million, or at least that's what was rumored. Pensions and insurance. Where do you think this is all going to go?
I suppose it's in terms of the wider kind of announcements that they've been making. We talked about, you mentioned Thought Machine in the notes there, and them being their kind of core banking platform in the US now. The Nutmeg acquisition that bought up a serious number of customers in the UK as well.
Right. Now, is JP Morgan's UK main investing product Nutmeg? Right. It is technically now. And are they building a current account offering onto that? Kind of. So, it's having that audience first and then monetizing it in a different way.
Lots of times, yeah. I was listening to the podcast version of Packy McCormack's latest Not Boring piece around Unit, I think unit.co, which is a banking as a service play, but he did a really interesting analysis of the kind of, the customer acquisition costs of neobanks, and, like, where is the differentiation? Ultimately, you're all offering the same version of the same thing, and it's just who has the cheapest route to market. So, the Nutmeg thing could be the key piece here, because they're saying, okay, well, we've already got a significant number of, investment clients. Now we're just adding on the other, and we're kind of reversing the bank on top of them.
Yeah, that may be what's happening here.
And if you think about it, it's probably a smarter route. And I keep obviously hammering at Monzo, because I expect them to be the one that won't work out. But again, they're trying to build additional functionality and offer it out to clients, whereby JP Morgan have the sticky, probably higher end customers through the Nutmeg acquisition that they can then add on the other features. And they're JP Morgan, so we're probably a bit more likely to trust them. And if you're already using them for investment management, you probably have more than just the UK in mind as as a customer, and in terms of what products and features you want access to. So it's probably a play on the UK customers who have a bit of money and want to do more with their life. And maybe they have investments, things that they need in other markets, of which JP Morgan will be able to help them with that.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a few scenarios where it could work. And I hadn't thought about the nutmeg context of it until just now. So if they've got that audience and they've got the basics of this digital bank ready to offer, do you just go to all the nutmeg customers and say, hey, integrate with us, open up an account, get as many of them as you can?
Yeah. Here's your free account, and you get extra versions of whatever the offers were, the 1% cashback, but because you're already a nutmeg customer, you get X, Y, and Z extra.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I saw that they did was they did a whole bunch of market research in the UK on spending patterns to determine who to put the loyalty programs in place with. And you can do that at home or abroad. So that's pretty interesting, right? You get a good loyalty program going right off the bat.
It's interesting that they wouldn't have just gone after Monzo.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And look, maybe they will. Maybe this is, let's get something out there in the market, and we'll eventually try take Monzo anyway and bring those customers across.
Yeah. The Thought Machine thing I think is interesting because it was also announced at the same time that they're, like you said, they're replatforming their US retail bank onto Thought Machine. So what it's not clear is if Thought Machine are providing the stack for the UK digital bank.
Yeah, I didn't see that specifically announced. No, you'd have to assume they were, on the basis they've taken them on to replace in the US. It would seem strange that they wouldn't already be, but I didn't see it announced anywhere.
So try this strategy on for size, is that you use the UK building a digital bank on top of Thought Machine as a market test for being able to then scale that platform into the US.
Yeah.
Right? So that could be part of the strategy as well. And if it doesn't work in the UK for marketing reasons and for competitive reasons, then do they still have a working proof of concept that they can use to learn a lot of lessons on for replatforming the entire US business, where they do have a big brand name advantage there.
Yeah, significant volume of customers as well.
But Jamie Dimon, he's saying, that banks should be scared as hell of fintech, right? And to me, it's not just fintech. And I did this on the Pat FinTech course last night that I lectured on, or sorry, the word I was using before was faculted, right? Shout out to Andrew Quinn. And where I talk through these three different business models of fintech. One, you're a software provider. Two, you're a direct financial services provider and have some element of regulation. Third, you're a hybrid provider where you're doing a bit of both. You're doing a bit of providing software, perhaps on a B2B basis, and then you're providing direct financial services. You might be white labeling some of what you do. So banks should be scared as hell of fintech. Which one is it? The direct software providers, those that are providing direct financial services, such as a Chime in the US or a Monzo or Revolut, or a Robinhood in the US, or those that are the hybrid players, like a Starling Bank, because they've launched Starling as a service now.
Yeah, I saw that.
So where you've got a direct financial services product and offering, but you also provide your technology to others on a B2B basis. Solaris Bank were one of the originals on that do it really well. So do you want to be a direct consumer brand? Or are you looking at what fintech are doing and saying that those fintechs could come in and make the tech stack of banks unnecessary?
They bring very aggressive, like obviously with the Nutmeg acquisition, they've made a number of acquisitions this year alone, and they're rolling this out. So they're putting their money behind it. They recognize the risks and they're trying to do something about it.
Yep, I know. On the topic of monetizing your community.
Yep, which we love talking about.
We do. AngelList is launching AngelList Stack. So this was reported in TechCrunch just yesterday, the 28th of September. AngelList is returning to its founder-focused roots with a twist. So they're launching a new suite of products that will compete with Carta. I'll talk about Carta in a minute, or Carta, as we say in America, in providing services to help founders start, operate, and maintain ownership over their companies. Okay, good. So what they're offering is end-to-end incorporation, business banking, advisor equity grants, and cap table management. For those that don't know who AngelList are, they are a platform for angel investors and companies that are seeking angel investment to come together. And they also have this concept called rolling funds, which lets you go kind of one step up from running an angel syndicate, where you have a bunch of angels together that are all investing into startups together. And a rolling fund is a concept a little bit further up the value chain from that. And they've done really, really well with that. They've had a great big platform, big community that they've been curating over the last, 10 years or however long that they've been in existence. So they're saying, we have this audience now, let's go offer them these products. What Carta do is that Carta started at the other end of the spectrum, and they said, we're going to make it very easy to manage cap tables. We're going to make it very easy for startups to issue equity. And Carta now, with their Carta X product, are saying, we're going to enable the digitalization of that equity, turn those into digital assets, and so that you can create an exchange around it, hence the name Carta X. AngelList coming at it from the other side, and they are saying that this banking tool that they've built has two parts. So deposit accounts with interest and debit cards, say like a Square offering SME bank accounts, right? Both accounts make it easier for founders to automatically accept wire transfers from investors, great, which then can blend into AngelList's new cap table tool. Okay, now you're really talking about automation. And then the cap tool will include issuing digital shares like Carta. All right. Safes, simple agreement for future equity. And we're seeing more and more of those in Ireland, which is great. Yeah. And employee option grants, right? So it's just taking this value chain of what founders and investors need to do together. And that's what AngelList were really good at, is bringing founders and investors together in a platform. And it's saying, let's take this times 10. I think it's excellent. I was just alerted to this by you. Thank you very much, Eoin Fitzgerald. And
Thank you,
had a look at it tonight, and pretty impressed with where this is going. So I think it's got some legs.
Yeah, like in one hand, it makes total sense. The interesting thing, and the way I looked at it when I saw it, because I know we've referenced, and even a TechCrunch article talks about its comparison to Carta. I actually think the thing that it made me think of Stripe and the way they kind of reversed their product down the value chain and allowed people to set up companies easily, and do all the incorporation and do all that, because they recognize, the GDP of the internet is only getting bigger. So they wanted to be behind every company that's being started, And to me, it's the same. We talked about it with Shopify doing the same thing, the entrepreneur store making it easy for people to open up new businesses. And I think because obviously there's a large volume of users already on AngelList, they've gone down that kind of value chain to say, okay, well, let's just make it a place for people to come and set up companies easily to take investment, as opposed to more directly competing with Carta. But to me, like I said, it seems more like Stripe, because we're recognizing that more and more companies are being established, and digitizing that process then means that hopefully they'll become the place for companies to be set up.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. And that analogy to Stripe of moving down the value chain is really interesting. And I didn't see this coming at all. I thought AngelList were just going to keep doing, and great. They came up with a rolling funds idea. And I saw something today. They only themselves, for their own business, have raised only $26 million over the years.
That, which is crazy.
Yeah. And so they don't have a whole heck of a lot of capital to do this. I'm sure they're going to go out and raise some money to do that, or perhaps set up a rolling fund to do that and leverage all these new tools that they're rolling out. But I got very excited a couple of years ago, I think it was, when Carta announced their Carta X product, but haven't heard a lot about that since then. When you are actually making shares of early stage startups available for sale in secondary markets, you need, like you said, you need that platform, you need the community, you need that audience already. Once you have that, people like using your product, they will get behind it, like a Revolut or Robinhood.
And I think because they're kind of changing their approach from the funder side to the founder side. If I'm an investor already using AngelList, I'll be telling the next company that I'm chatting to, or the next entrepreneur has an idea, well, why don't you set up your business through AngelList? Because obviously it's a lot easier for me to invest in. And then more and more, companies then start being established, so they can offer more services on the company formation side. The bank account piece, it seems like a no-brainer, but it's a really good kind of solution to obviously make the depositing of funds very straightforward.
Yeah.
So that could be a really good kind of, because I know obviously in the US and here as well, that's a challenge ultimately, trying to get cash into an account for a new startup. So, that could be a real kind of key piece to the whole thing.
I know. And seeing some of the folks out there that I know that are using AngelList right now to get their fund products going, like Chad Fox from Fox Ventures. Shout out to Chad, he's a great guy. And he's based his investment syndicate in fintech on AngelList and on the rolling funds. Now he's got a couple of other utilities that he's putting to work as well, but it's pretty impressive what they can support. So
watch this space with that one.
You got it. Anything else going on this evening that you thought was worth mentioning?
Do you know what? There was one. Let me see if I can find it. I picked it up on Twitter. It was, and you like what I'm referring to here. So there was I follow John Street Capital, which is an unknown person who puts together some incredibly detailed and very kind of informative stuff on fintech. But he was talking about the super app piece, because I think PayPal made some recent announcements around the broader offering in their play on the super app. But the thing in the Twitter thread I read about, and I missed it last week, it was Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, and he was talking, I don't know what he was, I think it might have been on an investor update or something, and he was talking about how they now refer to Bank of America as a subscription business.
Wow.
Yep. Because it says here, at the end of the day, if they were to describe it in modern parlance, they are a subscription business. Someone pays them through fees or accounts across all their businesses to maintain their core relationship and the way they engage with society.
That's crazy, thinking about it that way. It's true, but it's true. It's mind-bending to think about it that way.
So it had me thinking of our old favorite recurring revenue bundles or rundles. But yeah, it was because the next kind of tweet in the thread was around, fintech companies fully embracing subscription models. And we talked about Revolut, where they've a third of their customers or a third of their revenue is coming from subscription.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see who is going to be the first to, push that as their payment model. Because Revolut, I had to dig deep to find that information in their annual report.
Okay.
So who's going to be the fintech company talking about, for X amount you get, subscribe with us, and this is your monthly fee, and you get everything. It's not positioned like that.
Isn't that in effect what Revolut are doing?
It is, but yet they're not. It's almost like, I suppose it's just not positioned that way. That's what you're doing. It's not. You're paying for it like you're paying for your Netflix, but it's not presented in the market like that.
Okay, like we were talking about with Revolut, with a travel service saying, hey, pay your €100 a month or whatever it is, and you could fly wherever you want, within certain geographic regions for the month. And,
exactly.
It's all you can eat, all you can fly. And that you could look at a big banking offering beyond what Revolut do, where you've got loans, you've got insurance, mortgages, pensions, so on and so forth, and say, all right, we'll give you all that for a subscription fee.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
And it's a really interesting change to the business model from banks, and even, and he was probably talking about it from a kind of valuation point of view. I know Chris Skinner had an article out this week about big banks not being valued in the same way as the fintechs are valued, and because they're being valued as SaaS businesses or whatever. And he was probably making a version of the same point. That's probably why Brian Moynihan in Bank of America was mentioning it. But still, I think, whether it's a Revolut or someone, the first bank to come out and say, look, this is your flat fee, monthly fee, and for that you get this, and you pay the premium rate and you get whatever, and that's it. It's one fee, covers everything. I think that'll be really interesting to see and to watch.
Absolutely. You brought up a very interesting point here that got me going here on subscription and thinking about the entire financial services system as just a subscription. And if you're going to put media in that light, you might as well put money in that light, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and look, I think that's a whole entire separate thing. Rabbit hole we could go down.
Absolutely.
As to where that applies.
Well, on the flywheel concept, I am reading the Jim Collins book, Not Good to Great, but the follow-up to that, which is Turning the Flywheel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that. Let me know what that is, and I'll probably download it on the Kindle.
It's pretty good. For some reason, you're not able to download the Kindle unless it's the Spanish version. And although
how's your Spanish?
Although hablo español, not as good to be able to read
it like that.
Read a whole book in Spanish.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get there. So one of these days. My kids will get there before me.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, cool.
So that was an interesting one I just picked up off Twitter.
I like it. All right. Should we leave it there for this fine evening?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And
thank you.
We'll talk to you again very shortly.
Absolutely.
Adios. That does it for this week, folks. You can learn more about the stories we covered in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. So check us out online and subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. If you like what you heard, we would sincerely appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're listening on, as it helps others to find the show. And remember, Money Never Sleeps is spelled as all one word. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup advisor and investor. As always, I help fintech and digital asset startups get their product to market, build traction with customers, and raise funding. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.